Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Monday, April 14th, another two-man show. Just Peyton and I for this one. Jack is actually en route to my home in St. Louis, so I will see him soon, but we'll probably have some regular recordings, maybe some other shows, or might be two-man as we try to figure out schedules moving forward with some things changing. But we should be in a good spot right now to just talk about a new commitment. We waited a couple minutes before we started recording this, so we will preface again. And sorry that maybe the show came out a little bit earlier than you used to for that Friday show coming out on Thursday night, Thursday evening. But this one probably just go out right on regular time. And we waited a couple minutes, but Mizzou got its fourth transfer commitment in this portal season for men's basketball, Peyton, and that's Shawn Phillips Jr. We were going to open the show just talking about his top five. His agency, Weave, announced the five schools that he was looking at, that he was considering. Mizzou was in that. And then not really out of nowhere, kind of leading up to it, it just seemed like that was the one that he was going to go with. And he announced his commitment here at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Peyton, this is the big man, 7 foot, 245 pounds. He is the big man that Mizzou really wanted from Arizona State. I'm going to steal that from you. Tell us what you like about Shawn Phillips Jr.
Yeah, well, he's certainly, for one of the two he's certainly a top two big man from Arizona State that was in the portal this year. I'll say that with full I believe that fully. But no, there are things, there's going to be people that are going to look at some things with Shawn Phillips. They're going to see that he only had 5 points and 5 boards a game and didn't play starters minutes, really. He only played 18 minutes a game. And there's going to be people that are pretty skeptical about that, but I do think there are some more things to look at with Shawn Phillips that encourage me, at least. For one, 7 feet tall, 245. That's a big man. That's a true back to the basket. He's going to be a defensive presence down there. Had a 6.7 block percentage last year. Again, all these stats coming from Handy Dandy Torvik. We are a Torvik podcast, or really, I am a Torvik podcast host. So that's very encouraging. Josh Gray last year only had a block percentage, I believe, in the 3.1, which it went down from his time at South Carolina, but you still would have expected a little more from someone his size. But one thing you absolutely can't deny about Josh Gray is he had the size to be a good center. He was 7 feet tall as well, 260, so a little bit bigger than Shawn Phillips. But still, you're not losing much in the size department. I think that's a very good thing. Shawn Phillips also just all world around the rim compared to Josh Gray. Again, I don't want to turn this into a dunk on Josh Gray segment because, for one, I'll go on record and say that I think Josh Gray has been the best true center in the Dennis Gates era. That's kind of by default. Because the other option was Connor Vanover and I guess Mo Diarra, who was a 4 playing the 5. But Shawn Phillips has things that make him pretty head and shoulders better, I think. For one, he shot 70% around the rim, 70.9% at the rim, according to Torvik, was 41 of 49 on dunks. Josh Gray, comparatively, only had 11 dunk attempts last year, 10 of 11 on dunks, 28 of 51 around the rim, which is only 54.9%. So right there, you're getting way more, you're on paper right there, getting more offensively around the rim from Shawn Phillips. And I think that's really all you need with someone like Mark Mitchell kind of off to the side. You don't need a game-breaking center, but you need one that's a threat around the rim that teams have to kind of respect and throw attention to. And I think Shawn Phillips can do that. I think he's going to draw more eyes out of the paint. That should open up Mark Mitchell for a lot more opportunities. Maybe get a little more one-on-one, which inevitably is going to lead to a lot more fouls, which Mark Mitchell was already absolutely absurdly good at drawing last year. So I think from that standpoint, it works well. The rebounding percentage for Shawn Phillips is a little bit lower than it was for Josh Gray. Defensive rebounding, he's 22.8. Offensive, he's 9.8. Josh Gray was 26.3 on defensive, 14.3 on offensive. One other thing that kind of stood out to me, effective field goal percentage for Shawn Phillips, 57.3. Josh Gray, just 53.9. So certainly just it looks like they maybe sacrifice a little bit on the rebound side, hopefully for a few more block shots and a little more offensive, like a bit more of an offensive ceiling, because I like a lot of what Josh Gray did. I don't think anyone would accuse him of being a fantastic offensive weapon down low. And I don't think Shawn Phillips is going to be that either. But if he can be a little bit more consistent offensively, just be a guy that maybe you can throw it to on a pick and roll and be like, you have confidence he can get to the basket and score. I think that's a really, really big plus for them. We'll see how it works out, but I think there's a good fit here.
Yeah, you said you weren't going to dunk on him on Josh Gray at all, and then you brought up dunk stats. That's
I
probably the
did.
first time that's ever been mentioned on this show. Looking at that too, Payton, for just comparisons with Josh Gray too, he's down like 15 pounds compared to Josh Gray from their measurements this past season. Shawn Phillips is 7 foot 245, while Josh Gray is 7 foot 260. So a little bit in the same range. Just Josh Gray is a force too. I mean, you can watch it on the court. He's all that 260 and probably plus. He started 16 of those 33 games last season. Shawn Phillips appeared in 31 games last season for the Sun Devils and started 12. So I think maybe in a similar role too, that you're replacing talent. You want to get a little bit better each time. You want to better each position, better each starter. If someone leaves or someone departs the program. And I feel like this is kind of like your best spot. It is a guy that you're maybe not expecting to start every single game like you did with Josh Gray. There's going to be rotations where, maybe the biggest guy on the floor is Mark Mitchell. It's just kind of how it was last season too. And Trent Pierce as well being on the floor with a little bit of a longer forward. But of those guys so far that have joined Mizzou, there's been 4 additions. Of course, Javon Porter was the first, the forward transfer coming back home. Luke Northweather also coming back to Mid-Mo as a forward center option. And then Sebastian Mack was the commitment before this last week as a guard addition. In your mind, Peyton, I mean, with right now, there's only one roster spot to fill. Things could change. I mean, there's still another week and a half left for guys to enter the portal. But in your mind, what is like the premier starting 5 for you right now when you watch this Mizzou team?
So like with guys only on the roster?
Yep.
Okay, I'd probably say Phillips at the 5, Mitchell at the 4, obviously. Could go a few different ways with the rest. I will say I think Mizzou's starting wing is a transfer still, or at least their best wing. So I won't say that, obviously. Right now, I guess I'd throw Pierce at the 3, and I'd probably put Mack and Ant at 2 and 1 respectively. So that would probably be my 5. I think that's a decent team. You're probably not getting better from last year, but if you can kind of hold, maybe you get some big development from some of the freshmen. I'd really love to see Boateng be able to step up and maybe truly be that starting 3. I know he started games last year. I think we can all agree that was not necessarily because he was truly one of the best 5 options. I think it was just trying to jumpstart the freshman's development just against some blood donors. So I'd like to see maybe Boateng take a step forward. It'd be nice to see what Burns can do after getting to red shirt. We'll see what happens with Peyton Marshall. Maybe he can step up, get some more, like maybe he's in better shape, can really kind of cut into those minutes at the 5, be like more of a complete player. But as of right now, I think I have to just go with what's proven. And I don't really think Pierce is necessarily proven, but I do think he's the best option for the 3 at the moment.
And beating out some good teams here in that top 5. It was Creighton, get the full list here. Cincinnati, Kansas, Memphis, and Villanova. Sorry, no Creighton there, but I mean, it's a good group of schools. Big men are coming at a premium right now just in the transfer portal. I wanted to bring this up, just kind of throwing it out there, but seeing a guy like Josh Gray, enter the portal, and some other big men that Mizzou's kind of been connected to as well. I mean, if you have that opportunity to come back and play here, you can make decent money playing this game, and especially just as that 7-footer, it is something that it's a high market. You're trying to get guys. Jaden Quinton was probably the massive one that everyone wanted. That ended up going to Kentucky or back to Kentucky or making his actual appearance at Kentucky after getting out of his pledge there. So that's the latest just there. One spot to fill still for Mizzou, and we'll talk about some other guys just with quick connections. Nehemiah Turner, he's a freshman transfer from Central Arkansas. He was linked to Mizzou for a possible visit, but in your mind, Peyton, this one just doesn't feel like it's going to happen now, does it?
I mean, no, this was probably a backup option if they didn't get Phillips. You look at there is I believe it was Ryan Sweeney, I want to say, put out the visit and his highlight reel. He's got decent touch around the rim. He had 10 points a game last year. I will say, and he was just a freshman. But I will say the Atlantic Sun was not a good league. It was probably as low as a low major could get. And I don't really think it would have been a fantastic transition. I do think Phillips is probably the better option of the two. Turner, like you said, I don't think it's really an option at this point. I think that was really a pure backup. They whiffed on Phillips.
Yeah, and that too. If you bring in a guy like Turner, he had connections to Notre Dame as well, going visits there. So I mean, good, decent high major teams kind of coming after him. But in that sense too, if you get a guy like him, his body 6'10", 265, kind of makes you think. I mean, if you're Peyton Marshall, then maybe you think about leaving. There's talk around a bunch of the transfers, reasons why they should go elsewhere if they're stock. And if there's a stopgap in the way or just really not many opportunities. You bring in a guy with the same amount of eligibility. It kind of makes you think maybe that this isn't the spot for me if they're just going to replace my minutes. But I think it is a good spot, too, to bring in a center like Phillips, who has 1 year of eligibility remaining, and you can be like that stopgap. And if Peyton Marshall can take that second-year leap that we've seen a lot of these guys do in the Mizzou Tiger system, I think they'll be in good shape kind of looking at the future. Another name just from this week, Peyton, is kind of a funny one. Before our show on Friday, you did tell me Duke Miles committed to Virginia. So we got that kind of fixed and just out of the way, pushed him out. He's the Oklahoma transfer. Well, he backed off of his commitment to Virginia. I don't know if this is necessarily someone you think Mizzou would look at that wing spot, but is he still a name worth monitoring in your mind?
I would probably say no, unless Missouri has another transfer out and they just have kind of that wild card scholarship slot. This isn't a fit at the wing at all, I don't think. 6'2", 182. Duke Miles is a pure guard. I don't think he could really step out on the wing. So I would say as of now, it's not really one I would count on.
Yeah, especially with Sebastian Mack in the fold. I think Sebastian Mack is also 6'2". He has a little bit more size and weight behind him, but I think you've kind of filled that role and you're just kind of looking for that more pure wing. Moving over to football, excuse me. We said, we were, prefacing in the last show, hey, maybe something could happen. Hopefully Peyton and Jack can get on the mic and talk about it. And right when I think Jack was finishing up editing for the night, he was going to go on and do his own thing. Mekhi Bear announced his intentions, his intentions of entering the transfer portal along with Jamarian Wayne, a cornerback. Well, we'll start with Mekhi just because this one I have a little bit more familiarity with what the situation was. And, people are going to go after the guy. He's only around for, since December. I mean, that's only a handful of months just in the system. But when he did commit, he committed under DJ Smith, who left. But, the plus there was the new linebackers coach, Derek Nicholson, was someone who was pushing for him to commit to Miami. So there was that, good overlap there with connections at the same time. And he knew Sean Gleason a little bit too from his time when Sean Gleason was at Rutgers in New Jersey, where Mekhi played high school football. So another good overlap, guy that was kind of in his camp. But Tristan Newsome coming back, this was kind of word for word of what his high school coach told me is one that kind of helps him look over his recruitment and his situation. He said, throw a monkey wrench in it. That was just what kind of happened. when you bring in a linebacker, Mackay left Nebraska for a reason he was just kind of in a rotating role. Like the defense just really wasn't giving the stars, all the snaps that they needed and the snaps that they wanted. And he just wanted the opportunity to kind of finish out these 2 years of eligibility in a role where he's on the field, primarily every defensive snap. So with, the depth coming back, maybe, it's more of a testament to, this depth of the linebacker position. I don't think Mizzou is, losing too much. Mackay is a good leader. He's a good voice. He's a special teams monster too. I like the special teams highlights, and watching a linebacker at 6'2", 230 barrel down the field and take out a returner is a good sight. But at the same time, Nick Rodriguez, Jeremiah Beasley, like it is a good linebacker room. This linebacker room lacked depth last year, but it does have it this year. And I think that's going to be, the discussion early on is, how good is this depth and how far can it take Mizzou? But in your mind, Peyton, I know some fans are probably not happy. He gets his NIL money and all this and that, and everyone's going to have a reason to gripe. But I don't think it's that big of a loss, at all. I think it did kind of surprise you.
No, I don't either. I mean, like you said, linebackers pretty deep. They recruited a lot of young guys. They brought in Trotter as well out of the portal. I don't really understand how you could not have factored Newsome into the offseason plans. I mean, it felt like everyone on earth knew that JUCO ruling was coming. I remember reading a lot about how they kind of expected it to go Pavia's way. So I'm a little perplexed on how Mizzou did not at least account for that possibility. But at the end of the day, it kind of all works out for everyone. Bear will find somewhere he can play more. Missouri still has plenty of options at linebacker. So is what it is.
Yeah, not a big deal at all. And Mackay's already gotten some opportunities, and one of them is North Carolina, who's visiting recently. So if he ends up there, I mean, that's still a good spot. Bill Belichick is your coach. I know he wanted to play in the SEC. That was a big thing for him. But I did have that story come out on Mackay's life, and just kind of fitting that he did enter the transfer portal later that day. So it was just kind of writing on the wall, just that Mackay was going to look elsewhere. And linebacker position seems like it'll be fine moving forward. And there's some guys with eligibility in there, so it'll look very cohesive next season and moving forward. That second guy, Jamarian Wayne, it was just a tough thing. He's a freak athlete, Missouri guy. He's from St. Louis. He's 6'2", 195. But he switched positions 3 times. I think that's always kind of tough, early on in your college career. He played some wide receiver. He was in the safety room, back in the secondary again as a cornerback. And with a lot of the guys that they brought in from the transfer portal, they brought back 3 guys that were starting last season too, and they're probably not even done yet. There's roster spots open at the moment. Maybe they'll add another guy for depth. It just didn't really fit for Jamarian Wayne, didn't really stick anywhere he was. And I think this is just one of those things where you don't knock on the guy either. He's just going to go out kind of like Jakai Lang and find an opportunity where he's going to play every down.
Yeah, Jamarian Wayne, like you said, when you're switching positions that many times, it's kind of tough to find a role. It's tough because he was a very hyped up recruit. It was like a big deal when they got him. But again, just another one where eventually you're going to want to see time on the field, and Jamarian Wayne didn't really get to do that.
Yeah. When you're looking at more, cornerbacks too, and just, bolstering that secondary, I think one of the things you lacked last year too was reliable depth at the cornerback position. Toriano probably didn't take the step forward from Clemson that you were expecting. And hell, Nicholas DeLoach was, fighting with him for snaps and starts there for the second half of the year. So I think one of the big things bringing in Stephen Hall from Washington State and still looking in the transfer portal, they want guys in there. They want competition. Because you don't have the Ennis Rakestraw, you don't have the Chris Abrams drain. You got to have opportunities and guys to compete there at that position. And they're still looking at some guys' interest here from Rivals, from Adam Friedman of Rivals portal, Julian Neal, who joined Stanford. He's another guy kind of like in Mackay Bayer's situation where he entered the portal, didn't really stick. He's a Fresno State kid. So now he's back in the portal again. And there's a bunch of teams in here: Cal, USC, Auburn, Arkansas, Syracuse, Minnesota, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Kentucky, Georgia Tech, Kansas State, Oregon State, and Mississippi State also in that group with Missouri. And this is just interest right now. But it is, I think it's kind of trending in that way that once this portal opens, Missouri will definitely look for even more depth in that cornerback room for Al Polk.
Yeah, I think if I don't know the specifics, obviously. I'd assume Neal's just leaving because Stanford had a coaching change. So that probably factored into it. I know, I think ESPN had a top 10 transfer guys in the spring portal, and Neal was one of them. I think he was like number 7 on that list or something. So certainly someone to keep an eye on if Missouri can get him on a visit. I forget just like reliable depth. They didn't get good play out of any corners really last year. I was really surprised it wasn't more of a priority the past 2 off seasons. They do have, I mean, you kind of have to hope that Norwood being CB1 for a full year kind of helps him take another step forward. Hopefully one of pride, Deloach and Hall can kind of step up. And I mean, I'd keep throwing more and more guys in there as many times as you can, just because it's a very important position. And it legitimately, at times, was easily the weakest position on the field for Missouri.
Most certainly. And I think one of those things too, like you look at the defensive end position, linebacker position, you faced a lot of injuries last year. And I think one of the big things that they're trying to address with these transfer portal things is not only just starters, but depth. You can't rely sometimes on the redshirt freshman or the freshman because, and development wise, everyone is in a different spot, physically or just mentally for what their role is. And I think one of the biggest things this upcoming season is just relying on experience moving forward. And this Mizzou football team, it's no secret. They will probably love the transfer portal just a little bit more than the high school recruiting game these past 2 seasons. So they're going to continue to do it. Build from without is one of the big things they're probably looking at right now, bringing in guys who contributed at different levels and see how they stick. And sometimes there's not as much cohesiveness, but it feels like everyone kind of still has that mantra of there's something to prove that Mizzou's kind of thrived on. Peyton, we're going to throw it over to quick hits now. We'll see everyone on the other side.
And now for something completely different.
All right. Before quick hits, jump back on here. I just made a remark about Peyton Marshall could be entering the portal with the possible addition of a younger center, but even with a center with only 1 year of eligibility remaining, Peyton Marshall is in the transfer portal, and the Tigers will have 2 roster spots to fill. Peyton, just for you, what does it kind of mean for the Tigers to lose Peyton Marshall, especially just at this point in the portal? Does it kind of offer the Tigers, their roster spot for a position you'd like to be addressed? What's just kind of going through your mind?
Yeah, look, with Marshall, it is kind of tricky because he wasn't, I think we all saw, he wasn't that great this year. I don't think he was very skilled with the ball or anything, but there was a ceiling there. I think if he could, just get his legs under him a bit more, maybe with a little bit of refinement. I liked the possibility, like the idea of Peyton Marshall was kind of more enticing than what he actually was. As of now, it makes sense I said to you off air, even like with Phillips coming in, Missouri all of a sudden had like 5 guys that were over 6'10". I mean, you have Pierce even, so maybe 6. And this was before Peyton Marshall. So you would have had Pierce, you would have had Javon Porter, Luke Northweather, who maybe now I would expect with Phillips in the fold isn't going to play much, but that's still another one. You have Northweather, you have Phillips. Like it was just, there were too many big guys at this point, not enough minutes to go around. You have Burns in there as well. You would have had to throw Marshall in there. So that's 6. So it makes sense. I think for Missouri, like now people are going to be like, oh, they lost 2 of the 5 of this, really this supposedly great freshman class. That's not good. That happens everywhere. I mean, you're kind of just going to have to go into in with the assumption that about half of the freshmen you ever recruit nowadays are absolutely not going to finish with you. They probably aren't going to finish 2 years with you. So that's just kind of how it is nowadays. I mean, you look at it now, Dennis Gates has had with Rowe and Randall, that's 10 freshman commits he's had in 3 years. He's had 3 transfer out so far. And obviously Rowe and Randall can't leave yet, but let's assume one of them leaves after the year. That's still 60% retention. I think that's pretty good for this day and age. It's just going to be the key about development. I don't think Peyton Marshall was in position to really be able to get the development he needed in one offseason to be a real legit contributor next year. So I think it makes sense for everyone involved. Kind of tough because, like I said, I liked the ceiling on Marshall. The potential with someone his size was obviously like something to kind of be enticed by, but he was kind of like just not super coordinated this year. I think it was clear there was a long ways to go for him. And I don't think Missouri has that time right now.
Yeah, Missouri's losing potential over anything. I think that's just the thing that needs to be put out there just on this move. You know, they flipped him from Auburn. I was thinking about this even, I think, last night, Peyton. I believe we saw him on one of his visits to Mizzou, if I'm not mistaken, when we were still in school there.
I saw him and CY in the Shack. I literally walked by both of them. I was like, this is the biggest human being I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And
so
he
it was a
committed
big
to Auburn after that, but still.
Yeah, big flip there for Mizzou to get him to decommit and then land with the Tigers. So with the Missouri Tigers, I mean, it's just another loss just for Mizzou, but also an opportunity to fill a roster spot. So now it's back to 2 roster spots to fill. And I think at this point, I think it's a little bit safer to say whoever is still left on this team, you're maybe not really expecting anyone else to portal. I think this is probably a good spot with the guys that might have roles. Everyone wants to throw up T.O. Barrett, just as one out there, maybe at the guard spot. Are people going to come after Boateng? I mean, does somebody else want Burns on their team? But I think, it's never over until it's over when the portal closes. But I think Mizzou is officially kind of locking in on, whoever else is left out there for them in the portal.
Yeah, no, I'd be pretty, obviously anything can change. I didn't expect Marcus Allen to hit the portal at all, to be honest with you, and he hit the portal. But I agree with you. I'd be really shocked. Like logistically, just roster fit wise, I don't see a reason anyone else would want to leave at this point in time. And I do think having 2 scholarship spots is pretty good for Missouri now. Like I said, they absolutely need to get a wing. Probably maybe you look at another guard. You can really do whatever you want with that last scholarship spot. It is a true wild card. I think if you bring in 2 guys that can drain a lot of 3-pointers, though, that's probably the best course of action. One of them being a wing, the other being whoever you want. But I think 3-point shooting has to be the priority.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the fit. We'll try to see if there's any other new names popping up or any of these other names kind of resurface as those opportunities. But won't hold you guys too long. We'll throw the show over to Quick Hits now. All right, Quick Hits time. Peyton, I got my Ken Sports shorts up. So I was looking just through like single season stat records and just different things for Mizzou football. And I thought this was a good one because you wouldn't use Cody Schrader as your tire in the wild because he just got signed to a new agency. And I thought this was a perfect thing for you, but you don't seem thrilled about it. So I thought instead we will look at the 3 categories that he is ranked inside of the top 10 in all-time single season Mizzou football history. Do you want to start with one of them? I mean, can you guess any of them?
So I see the first one there, single season rushing yards. So this is all Mizzou history, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
so he's
he's number 1 in rushing yards. That one I know.
Yep, in 2023, he did break that record that Tyler Beatty held. He has 1,627, Tyler Beatty at 1,604. So twice, I mean, during our time in college and the year after college, there was a change at the top. Of course, Tyler Beatty did break Devin West's record of 1,578 from the 1998 season. All right, second one, Peyton. Career rushing touchdowns.
Career rushing touchdowns. That is a tough one. Is he top 5 in it?
He is not top 5.
Okay. Is he top 10?
Yes, it only goes to 10.
Okay. So if he's top 10, not top 5, that leaves you 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I got about a 20% chance if I throw a dart.
Just throw
let's go 7.
He's 9th. He is tied for 9th with Tyler Beatty. He had 23 across 2 seasons, 2022 and 2023. Tyler Beatty had those 23 across 4 seasons, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021 in different capacities. Of course, he was the starting back in 2021. And then single season rushing touchdowns. Where does he rank, Peyton?
Okay, so this is obviously 2023. He did have a few in. How many touchdowns did he have in 23?
He had 14.
14 rushing touchdowns. Is he top 5 in this one?
No.
Okay. Let me go 8.
He is tied for 8th. You are correct.
All right.
With Larry Roundtree, Zach Abram, Corby Jones, Tyler Beatty, and then it's Cody Schrader.
Corby Jones at tied for 8th. That's great.
Number 1, do you want to guess?
For rushing touchdowns in a year?
Yep.
Ooh. Is this an NFL guy?
Yes. Quarterback,
you said?
Yep.
That's too easy. Brad Smith.
It is Brad Smith. He's on here twice. He is also 4th. So in 2003, he had 18 single season rushing touchdowns. And then in 2005, he had 16. So
pretty ridiculous run of QBs Mizzou had, starting with Mr. Smith.
All-time rushing touchdowns, he's also first with 45 across his 4 seasons. Single game, he had 5 once in 2003 against Texas Tech. Demary Crockett is number 2 on that list with 4. And I guess there's just a bunch of names at 3, so they didn't even put him on this list. But he had 4 against Middle Tennessee in 2016.
Demary Crockett. What a great name. I mean, geez, that Brad Smith one, man, it would have been a joy to get to watch him play in college. I mean, what just a video game character.
Yeah, I've had some older fans tell me too. I mentioned the recruiting scene really changed. I think it's safe to say when Luther Burden committed to Missouri over all these other powerhouses, especially when he was pledged to Oklahoma at one point as well. But they said Smith changed everything. Like I just felt like that the turn of the century there when he was the quarterback as Mizzou. It felt like everything was trending in the right direction. Tiger in the Wild. Peyton, my Tiger in the Wild is Connor Tollison this week. I thought this was a fun one. Comes from Matt Perkins on X, football coach over down there at Rockbridge. But he said, can't say enough about Connor Tollison. Guy is rehabbing his injury at Mizzou and going to school preparing for another run with the Mizzou football team. But is also interning here at Rockbridge and has been elite help. Thankful every day for this dude. Mob. And then MIZ. I thought this was cool. Kyle McCreevy actually wrote a story. He talked to Coach Perkins just about just what Connor Tollison is doing down there. He's a part of one of his classes, I believe, that he's taking, and there's an internship a part of it. And so he's interning down there. And a lot of these guys were just super pumped. He is from Missouri. So I know a lot of these kids like his story, just where he's kind of come from and gone to Mizzou. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them would love to follow in his footsteps.
Definitely. And is that another Missouri football player behind, or is that just a reflection? No. Is that another Missouri football player behind him?
That's a mirror.
That is a mirror? Okay.
Yeah.
No, that definitely is a mirror. I see now. But no, Connor Tollison, I mean, it would be the O-line kind of takes a lot different shape if they can get his experience back in there and assume he's 100% healthy. So cool opportunity for him. Again, sometimes you forget these guys are going to school at the same time. So,
yeah. And I mean, some people probably forget too, Connor Tollison was like a legit draft prospect too before his knee injury. So if Drinkwitz and Mizzou staff are right and just with their expectations of him coming back, it is a good returner for that offensive line. Peyton, your Tiger in the Wild.
My Tiger in the Wild is going to be Brady Cook. He threw out the first pitch for the dreadful, terrible, no good St. Louis Cardinals. The St. Louis Cardinals tweeted, "Let him cook," cooking emoji. Great to have Mizzou football's own Brady Cook in the house tonight. And then there's a couple of very nice photos of Brady Cook throwing out the first pitch.
Yeah, I'm going to a game on Monday. I'll let you know how it goes, Peyton.
You don't have to.
It's the team that's not spending money right now, so it's probably tough. I think this is Equity. I think this is isn't this the company that reps Cody Schrader now? I just want to keep talking about this because you ignored me.
What's Jack's Tiger in the Wild?
Jack's Tiger in the Wild is Tamar Bates, who got invited to the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament. The only reason I know what the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament is if you play in it, I think you get suspended for 4 games if you return to college basketball the next season. So it's an opportunity for
Vanover did.
Yeah, Connor Vanover did it, and I don't know if anyone remembers, he didn't play in a couple games in that second year with Dennis Gates because of this. Tamar Bates, of course, out of eligibility, is playing in this. He's the all-time NCAA leader in free throw percentage at Indiana and Missouri. I thought that was cool. But overall, just another guy to kind of monitor as maybe an opportunity in the draft, in the second round, or if he gets picked up by a team and can star in the G League, like we've seen with a lot of these Missouri guards in recent years.
Now, does that all-time NCAA leader in free throw percentage, is that true?
I think it's at those schools.
Okay, well, they should take out the word NCAA then, or the term, because
it says Blake Ahern at Missouri State, 94.56.
Okay, then I think the Indiana and Missouri part is correct. Pretty absurd. I mean,
isn't on this list.
It sure felt like it, except for like when Tamar just randomly missed the front end of 2 1-and-1s against Tennessee. I mean, it was pretty much automatic every time.
Drew Smith is on this list at 75.
Wow. I did not know it. I knew he was a good free throw shooter, but that's ridiculous.
Interesting. Headlines. We'll go with my headline first. Another Mizzou staffer leaving. We talked about Rob Summers going up to Cleveland State. And I believe even Dennis Gates got to go up and watch his ceremony when he was being announced as a head coach. So that was really cool. But another staffer just leaving. Nick Corda, his first year on the Tigers staff. He served as a GA before at Florida State and also at Cleveland State with Dennis Gates. But Nick Corda is going to be an assistant coach at VMI. VMI's taken 2 staffers before from Missouri, so Corda joining some guys that he's been around before, or at least one guy for this upcoming season. But with Missouri, I believe he was assistant director of player basketball operations, and he served in similar capacities at Bowling Green too, from 2021 to 2024. But just another position that Dennis Gates will have to fill. He has 2 at the moment.
Yeah, I don't remember the other staffer that VMI has taken from Missouri. I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember the name. Very interesting pipeline, Missouri to VMI.
Yeah, there's a direct flight. I don't know if you knew that. That's why they keep doing this. I'm actually going to try to find it.
Where if you can name the town VMI is in, I'll respect that joke.
I need to know what state it's in first, and then I'd let you know.
You don't know what state the Virginia Military Institute is in.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Here it is. Okay, I'm looking at it. So he served as a GA under Leonard Hamilton from the 2020-2021 season at Florida State. But in terms of other Missouri staffers, Xavier Silas, who's the associate head coach at VMI, was an analyst for Gates at one point, and then Perrin Foote, who's not listed on the staff for next year. He was the former player development coordinator for Mizzou. He was an assistant coach last season, but currently he's not listed on staff. So I do wonder if Nick Corda just took his spot moving forward.
That's interesting. I wonder what happened there. Yeah. Who knows?
All right, Jack's headline. This was originally going to be his Tiger. We moved it down, but he took Drew Lock, agrees to terms. He's going to return to the Seahawks. He's going to be a backup there. Peyton, it just kind of seems like Mizzou is becoming backup QBU. I mean, how do you kind of feel about that? I feel like that's a good title. Make your money.
I've said that a few times before, and I think it's a good moniker. Chase Daniel was legendary for just kind of swindling teams of millions and millions. Drew Lock is seeming to carve that niche. We'll see if Brady Cook can follow in those footsteps. But I think it's a good moniker to have. Also, Drew Lock in Seattle was fun. So I think this is a good vibes signing all around.
Yeah, definitely. It's, make your money, wear a hat well. I think that's something that you see a lot from those backup quarterbacks. You always holding the collar. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see my acting skills there. But yeah, it's just, a good opportunity for him to go back home as in his second home in the Pacific Northwest. I'm pretty sure he might still have. Peyton, your headline.
My headline is going to be, and before anyone says anything, we're recording this before the Masters is over, so I'm going to have a Masters quick hit on Friday. But the probably biggest sports story that wasn't the Masters this weekend. This is from Pete Thamel at ESPN. Tennessee moves on from starting QB Nico. Oh shoot! We did a game about how to pronounce his last name.
Just don't say what you said last time. That's what people in the comments section.
Maliava.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Maliava.
You can just say
well,
Nico
he's gone. He's left Tennessee. It was a very, very ugly exit. There were kind of just some random rumblings that there was an NIL dispute. Like the rumor I think was that Nico wanted like $4 million. Tennessee wasn't really willing to go there because, I mean, I'll be honest. Nico was not that great of a quarterback last year. He did a lot of his stats were inflated against teams like Chattanooga, like West Carolina. Like he had 19 and 5, and I think 11 of those touchdowns came at like Vanderbilt, UTEP, Chattanooga. Like that's not good. He was not fantastic last year at all. 104 yards in their playoff game on 31 attempts. And it on Friday. He just no-showed the practice. People were saying he just kind of didn't there was just a breakdown in communication. Nobody was talking to each other, and Tennessee just decided to move on. You haven't seen this. This is kind of a big deal because I don't know that we've seen an NIL dispute go quite like with just on this big of a scale. Like the quarterback of Tennessee coming off a playoff season, Tennessee just was like, no, we're not going to pay you. You're not going to strong arm us into giving you $4 million or whatever the rumored was. And yeah, I mean, he's out of there now. We'll see where he winds up. Feels like this is going to kind of be like a bit of a tipping point. Like our team or more teams going to start kind of just telling these athletes, no, thank you. This has obviously happened before where NIL disputes happen and players go into the portal, but I don't know that it's gotten this ugly on this high of a profile before. Very, very interesting, pretty shocking. We'll see what Tennessee does at QB now. I know they have a 5-star and a 4-star, but that you'd have to assume they go after someone in the portal.
I mean, good on Tennessee too. I think that's one of the big things too, in my opinion, kind of just standing up to it. I mean, he's a guy who 11 of his 18 touchdowns came, against some weaker competition. Vanderbilt had a good season last year, but it's still always seen as the lower end of the SEC. And we can throw Mississippi State in there as well. It was not a good season for Mississippi State. He had 2 touchdowns. So just overall, I don't think this is the last kind of drama we'll see. I mean, we saw quarterback leave at UNLV after a great start under Barry Odom, just because the money that was promised that wasn't in writing never came through. Looking at the top 2025 quarterback or 2023 quarterbacks, Peyton, you have Arch Manning, Nico, Dante Moore, Malachi Nelson, and Jackson Arnold. It has not gone to plan. Arch Manning is the only one that's stuck around at that school. Nico in the portal. Dante Moore is up at Oregon now, but he should be starting. Malachi Nelson went from USC to Boise State to UTEP. And then Jackson Arnold went from Oklahoma to Auburn, so still staying in the SEC. But it's been a tough go for those top guys in the 2023 class. And this kind of just blends into the ratio community note of the week. And this actually comes from his dad. On Twitter. This was one of the things that was tweeted ahead of time, and it kind of put Pete Nakos from On3 in a tough spot because he was just reporting, and this guy just leaked what their conversation was, as in Nico's dad, who's Nick. More games being played off the field than on the field. B-word Nakos from On3 Sports called and asked me directly. I told him I had no idea on what he's talking about. He said his close source that he trusts with his life and the University of Tennessee staff gave him this. And I've never seen something like this get community noted. He kind of went on this information so y'all can ask them what's going on because it ain't from us. That part got ratioed, 436 replies to 370. That was just a continued tweet, continued thought. But Nico's dad here got 1.2 thousand replies to 1.5 thousand likes. But I've never seen this, Peyton, with just reader context, Pete Nako's initial report on the Tennessee quarterback situation was correct, as Nico was in fact holding out for NIL money and is now entering the transfer portal. It's just very, transparency just goes such a long way. It makes people not hate you for something I think everyone wants, a better job, better financials and whatever you're doing. But at the same time, this is just a very tough look and just a crazy situation right at the end of spring camp too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this doesn't get ironed out in winter. I know they had the playoff and everything, but it is very shocking that this happened the way it did when it did. I mean, Tennessee's spring game, I believe, was this past Saturday, which is just crazy. Has his dad tweeted since this?
I don't think so. I can look real quick. When I put this into our script last night, he had not tweeted. Okay, I think he might have.
Whoa, man! Did he delete his Twitter?
He might have deactivated. Oh no, here it is. Yeah, that was the last tweet he had, and that was on the 10th. It was April 10th, and the game was the 12th, and all that news officially came out on the 12th that he was no longer with the program.
Crazy, man. Just an absurd situation in an increasingly absurd and I'll say downright dumb sport at times.
Yeah. We'll end it on a higher note. Peyton, you have a joke of the weekend.
Give me a second because I totally forgot to find a joke. But we'll pull up our handy dandy favorite TV series, The Today Show. Here we go. This is a good one, Kenny. Kenny, have you ever heard of quiet tennis? It's the
give
same.
Me a second.
Okay.
Oh, it's the same what?
It's the same as regular tennis, but without the racket.
That's a good one. That is a pretty good one. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of The Unwritten Rule. We hope everyone had a great weekend. You have an even better week. Feels nice outside. But we will see you next time on The Unwritten Rule.